You fill so many different roles, so many different hats. You're a poet, you're a painter, you are also an actress, and we'll come back to your acting experience and your collaborations with local artists in a minute. But I first wanted to know about your most recent collection of poems.
My most recent collection is called Said the Swing to the Hoop. It came out in 2019. It started from the title poem, Said the Swing to the Hoop, and the poem is a conversation between the hoop and the swing on a playground, talking about the children that should be playing there, and realizing that too many of them are laying on the ground. And so,
laying on the ground, what kind of image
laying
are
on
we
the
conjuring
ground,
here?
Trying to conjure images of too much violence, images of young people lost to trauma, experiencing things that they shouldn't have to experience at a young age.
Right.
And so
these are like middle schoolers you're talking
exactly.
about here.
Middle school, early high school, and I was teaching middle school for a little bit, and for me, like, I started to really think about what it was like for me in middle school and the experiences that I had growing up, and so the collection kind of grew from that.
Right,
and
it draws from your past then in many ways.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. I draw from personal experience, trauma that I've had to heal from, just, experiences in middle school that I had that I'm sure kids are still experiencing now. Even and it wasn't all trauma. It was some of it was I had a crush on this boy and he didn't like me.
Isn't that a coming of age story?
Right. So the book is just a visitation into who I was as a kid and how that helped me develop into the person I am now.
So this is so great, Dee. It sounds like this really pulls from your life. Would you mind reading us a poem from your newest collection?
Sure. I will read the title poem, since I mentioned it. And it's called Said the Swing to the Hoop. I think we might be the best parts of the playground. We make hearts fly a little, see the sky different. You see, it's all about perspective. We know what it's like to have legs push for us on a swing to a rim. We know about trash talk, kids seeing who can go higher. We know about late nights and street lights. We know about emotions when they go wrong. See, no one goes to the slide when they're sad. We got swag. We be a new way to see clouds before they rain. We just might be the best parts of the playground. We see dreams big as life, the ground on one side, the sky on the other. Only difference, they have to jump through hoops to get yours, swing a lot to get mine. We see sweat and pain and tears and scrapes. We see blood. Sometimes it's not the kind from victory, that kind of play, ground up like I lost my memory, like I forgot the way laughter sounded on the way down. Too many of them are laying on the ground. I just can't swing that kind of pain. Tell me, how do you keep them above the rim? Maybe I can keep them reaching for the sky. Real talk, we be the best parts of the playground. We be the only ones have them reaching for something bigger than themselves.
Wow. This personification of the playground and different elements tells such an incredible story. I can't help but think a lot of your work really deals with pain and loss on many different levels. Why are the arts so important for dealing with these very difficult and frankly almost universal human experiences?
Well, art is healing. Art gives pain language that we don't always have. And for me, it's always been a way to start a conversation around something that I don't really know how to start a conversation on.
Right.
If I can put it in a poem or if I can create some kind of visual piece to it, then I have a doorway into it that wasn't present before. And I think that's what it does for people who hear the poems or they see art or they experience music. You know, we listen to a song and it puts us in a whole different mood.
Right.
So
have you seen this play out specifically in your own experiences? Because what you read for us is a poem you wrote for the page, but you also do spoken word.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen how your work impacts the audience too when you've done these live performances?
Absolutely. You know, sometimes I get on stage, I perform, and then after the show, someone comes up to me and says, thank you. They'll say, you know, you put words to an experience that I've had. Or they'll say, I've been through that too. Thanks for sharing your experience. Or, you know, maybe I've shared something that they had no idea about because it wasn't their experience, but now they can kind of see what someone else has gone through and maybe even treat a situation in the future differently because of that.
Right,
you know, so
right.
it's a powerful thing to be able to just tap into a human experience. And share our stories because all of our stories are connected to each other.
Right.
You know, we only know that if we share them.
It almost creates more open space for people to be like, oh, I can kind of fill that in with my own memory, and oh, I really remember what that feels like. So it's great. You're giving people a space, and you're giving them a container in a way to kind of revisit these things and understand them in new ways. You know, on a recent podcast with Marion Roach Smith, you talked about the host asked you about identity, and you were talking about the arts as a lens for understanding your own identity as a Black woman. I would love to know a little more about how your identity as a Black woman plays a role not only in your artistic expression, but vice versa as well.
Well, you know, I had a professor in college say, write what you know. And it's like, that's a common piece of advice that's given to people. For me, I am Black and I'm a woman. And so when I speak about my own experiences, that shows up a lot in the writing. But beyond that, you know, growing up, I really was looking for representation. And I had to work hard to find it. You know, I didn't.
In books and movies.
Books, film, television shows.
Yeah.
You know, I could name all the shows that I watched as a kid so I could see myself. And, you know, I used to go to the library and the librarian would help me find books that had characters in them that looked like me. Because I wasn't getting that in school. And I wanted to see me. You know, I wanted to see me.
Yeah, so it sounds like visibility is a really important thing.
Visibility is a very important thing. And so as a writer, as a creative person, I want to give that representation in my work because I know that it's important. And I think that we've made strides since I was a child. You know, I see a lot more shows on television that I could see myself in. And, you know, I've since read a lot of literature that I can see myself in. But it's an ongoing thing of opening up the space more so that we can tell our stories very honestly and candidly about who we are, you know?
Yeah, so not only through poetry and prose, but I also know you do painting, you also act. Can you tell us a bit about the way you use these other types of artistic mediums, in particular the acting and the kind of focus you do on historical figures? Because it sounds like your identity as a Black woman plays an important role in that as well.
Yes, it does. So I started doing reenactments of historical figures, mainly Sojourner Truth. I started with Sojourner Truth, and then over time I added Harriet Tubman and Shirley Chisholm. And that's also another thing about representation and telling stories and telling history.
Yeah. But why are these figures so important? Why are these particular women so important to you?
Well, Sojourner's life is, like, if you read about Sojourner's life, she was just a phenomenal person. And I don't know how much it's taught in schools. I know that I've been booked to reenact Sojourner because educators are looking for fresh ways to bring learning to a classroom of who Sojourner might be or who Harriet might be. And I think, you know, for me personally, I learned more about Harriet growing up than I did Sojourner, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And so I've become very close to her life and what happened in her life and the kind of courage that she had to overcome a whole bunch of things. And just, you know, every time I'm Sojourner on stage, I feel I feel her presence in a way, but also it feels that I feel like I'm helping to uphold her legacy. And I think that's really important, tapping into history so we understand, what happened before, where we came from, and taking some of those gems from history to move us into the future.
Incredible. Well, Dee, it sounds like you are having such a massive and positive impact on people, educating and inspiring them with your work. So thank you so much for sharing your story on A House for Arts. It's such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me.